In the last few hours, the governor of the Russian border region of Belgorod has declared a state of emergency, saying Ukrainian shelling had made the situation there extremely difficult. It comes as President Biden says Ukraine's surprise cross-border incursion into Russia, which started 8 days ago, has created a real dilemma for Russia's President Putin. Ukraine's President Zelensky now claims his country controls more than 70 communities in the Kursk region of Western Russia. That's an area of around 1,000 square meters. Now, this map shows just how rapid the advance has been in the last 7 days, with Ukraine claiming to have taken more territory in a week than Russia has all year. Now, Russia says it has destroyed more than 100 Ukrainian drones and 4 missiles fired at its border regions overnight. Well, let's speak now to Dr. Olga Boychak, a Ukrainian senior lecturer from the University of Sydney. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us on BBC News. I wondered if I could ask you first, how surprised were you that Ukraine went into Russia?
Well, this was an incursion that was brilliantly planned and executed. And of course, if it shows us something, is that in this war, which is probably the most documented war in history of mankind, there are still surprises. And the battlefront is not as transparent as we have been conditioned to see, right? We often see a lot of footage, a lot of smartphone footage, drone footage of the places where battles are taking place. However, in this case, the fact that we were all surprised, I think does speak to, this element, this fog of war that is still ongoing. With that, I think that does reveal a lot of vulnerabilities that the Russian border has. Ukraine and Russia share up to 2,000 kilometers of the border. And I would like to perhaps make an adjustment that Ukraine now controls 1,000 square kilometers of the Kursk region. And so with this martial law being instituted, with the state of emergency being declared in those 3 border regions, that has massive and potentially catastrophic implications on the course of this war for Russia.
President Biden says it creates a real dilemma for President Putin. What do you think he will now do next?
It does put President Putin in a very difficult position for a few reasons. So strategically, he would have to withdraw many of the troops that are currently fighting in the east of Ukraine. We know there's been hundreds of military clashes per day in places like Chasiv Yar, like Pokrovsk. A lot of those forces would have to be withdrawn from there and dissipated along the border to protect it. As well as this state of emergency, it has a lot of implications on what those areas are going to be. So they would have to be cordoned off. There would have to be a border between among them separately, and then between them and the rest of the Russian territory. And that is kind of the scenario that we are looking at, is what they have done in Donetsk and Luhansk following their occupation in 2014. So it is very likely that the citizens in those territories would be heavily surveilled, right? Every citizen there becomes a potential Ukrainian collaborator. And so that will have implications on their ability to move in and out of those regions. But a much more significant implication of that would be for the Russia's elites, because right now, not being able to defend its national border, Russia is starting to look like a failing state. And that is a big concern for the elites, for the oligarchs that are planning, their future. Are they able to stay in the country? Is the regime going to be able to defend itself? And that is now a big question. So now with this very long border, and now we don't know where the next surprise incursions might take place. We have some evidence that they might be happening in Belgorod, they might be happening elsewhere. And so Russia will end up playing this whack-a-mole game across the whole border, trying to contain the Ukrainian forces. And that will potentially really weaken its abilities to continue this war. And this is something that Ukraine is particularly looking forward to disrupt their military supply chains, their logistical supply chains, and make it really impossible or very difficult for them to continue attacking Ukraine.
Dr. Olga Boychak, thank you very much for joining us here on BBC News.
Thank you.